So, shall we start? Hello, everyone, again. I'm really pleased to run my first panel, moderate my first panel. I've been attending a couple of them as a panelist, but it's the first time I'm moderating, so don't judge hard. Despite quite a few challenges I had last week, due to a few people dropped at the very last moment, I found myself last Wednesday actually trying to assemble a panel almost from scratch. I had only one person who confirmed. That happens, I mean, visa stuff and private things, you agree with people to attend, and then they have stuff happening. So the topic of our panel today is hard lessons from soft launches, though surprisingly it will not be about UA at all. It will be about monetization. And I'll allow my panelists to introduce themselves. All of them from really different companies who run different games. They have different background. Though the goal for panel for me today was actually to bring as diversified opinions as I could. So it's not like for Unity to push something, but just for you to learn how different companies drive ads monetization and check ads monetization during soft launch. And we basically, the structure will be the following. We will have 5 questions which were disclosed to panelists, and they will share their opinion about how they do this and that. Feel free to shoot your questions in the middle of the panel, address them to all panelists, so someone in particular, or hold off until the end of the session and then ask your questions. We'll have enough time. So now it's time for panelists to be introduced. Please, feel free to use your microphones. We have 2 of them. And then I'll move to questions then.
Okay, 1? Yep, let's work. My name is Kate. I'm a lead of user acquisition manager at Easybrain company. Easybrain, it's not a big company based in Minsk on Cyprus, and we develop casual games and evergreen niche. And previously, I worked like a product manager and marketing and monetization, more than 4 years, and 3 big companies, and one of them is King.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Christian. I'm with SEAL.GAMES. Our company is also rather small, so only 16 people. But we develop free-to-play strategy games already since 2005, so almost over a decade by now, and we transitioned from platform to platform, focusing nowadays on mobile. I'm heading business development, not only sales, it's sort of platforms and partnerships management, knowledge transfer, and representing our company at conferences. So, yeah.
I'm Ivan Trancik. I'm a founder and CEO of SuperScale. As I said, we do not develop games. We leave the hard part to actually talented developers, but our job is to make them as successful as possible. So we take the business part, so monetization, analytics, UA, and yeah, we launch a bunch of success titles. For example, Hill Climb Racing 2, and recently Idle Coffee Corp, Beat Boom Beat, Rumble Stars with Frogmind. We have quite good growth partnerships, especially with Nordic Studios, Poland, and some in US as well. Yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Julian. I work with 2 companies at the moment, Sad Puppy on the Lemmings franchise, and Soccer Manager. I work in a CRO capacity to optimize ad revenues and other revenues. Formerly VP at Natural Motion, Hutch Games, and a number of others.
Cool. So thanks a lot for self-introductions. And the first question, to align all the audience, because all of us could understand soft launches differently. Some people do soft launch as early access on Google Play. Someone runs soft launch for a couple of years. So could you please share your expertise and opinion? What is soft launch for you? So what kind of games you soft launched recently, successfully, not successfully? And what is soft launch for you? What do you check? Why do you run soft launch?
Because our games in Easybrain, it's a simple casual games, we have a very short and faster soft launch. Our games mostly based on ads monetization, and just a few of that have the subscriptions. And during the soft launch, we need to check not only our stability of our ads monetization side, our UA side, and our app. We just focused on organic, the first of all. The second one, we focused on our partner from the monetization side, on our waterfall, because we use the mediation partner. And we need to put not only one traditional or programmatic, we just put several partners because we need to create internal competition, because some kinds of partner work very different, and it differs from geo to geo. And also we need to check our subscriptions model, because all you know that the subscription works better in US market, but doesn't work maybe in Asia, because all Asia users have the some billing issues. And during this soft launch, we need to close these questions. And after that, we can start and go to worldwide release. And this way, something like 2 or 4 weeks for the new title. If you talk about the platform, iOS or Android. And we not open all countries for the start. We just open 4 or 5 with different users for us. For the tier 1, for the second and the third tiers. And after that, we can work with the previous updated data and scale it to worldwide.
Cool.
Impressive. So we do not have a soft launch phase in the traditional sense. Instead, we sort of blended soft launch, let's say, practices into our design thinking workflow, which we use as game design method to come up with compelling features. It's a user-centric method, and it has multiple validation steps. And in these multiple validation steps, we actually measure metrics such as engagement, retention, and of course monetization. And from there, it goes then back to production if it's greenlit through all the validation steps, and we prepare it for production and test it then actually in launch, because we have a approach where we do not, or a development approach where we do not develop just a single game, but we always develop a production pipeline, which helps us with lean production, overall production of future content.
Yeah, thank you. We do quite lots of launches, especially this as we work with developers. We already have a game essentially ready to soft launch and launch. So this is where we come in. And out of let's say over 30 soft launch and global launches in last 2-3 years, I would say that and very various games like Idle Coffee Corp. It's like very heavily ad-driven game, or simple up to really very mid-core, hardcore in-app purchase games. I really think that soft launch doesn't need to be that long or that short as well. Essentially, the only thing that we want to check is 3 things. So first, technical issues. First of all, we want to make sure that the game doesn't crash. Of course, the game does work. There is no lag. There is good performance of the target devices. Then we go to retention phase. So essentially, check that if there are some blockers or something bad with the core design that should be fixed, and then progress to a monetization / essentially ROAS testing, so return on ad spend, as we do not really believe that global launch is a big event nowadays with games. Essentially, even if you get some visibility, it's something nice. You get more data, how to scale, but it doesn't really make or break the game. So when you essentially stabilize the game baselines, so it has meaningful, it has good technical performance, meaningful retention, and meaningful monetization drivers, whether it is correctly set up, ad pipeline, good enough LTV combine, and you already checked. The most important part is essentially for us to check how scalable is the game before the global launch, because we do believe that essentially the only true business model is when you can spend efficiently. So once you prove that what's your CPI elasticity for that, then you're ready to establish good enough budget for the global launch and scaling onwards. So 3 to 6 months for me tops. And even if you haven't, integrated and did everything correctly, in my opinion, waiting too long, it's bad because you don't get enough learnings from the traffic you would get.
So the latest title, Lemmings, we had that in development for 2 years. We were soft launch for well over a year. The core metric was pretty much defined within the first 3 months. It worked fine. What we were really testing alongside core metrics was the control systems, taking a classic game such as Lemmings from what was essentially a PC console game to mobile. Unique challenges on control systems, and it was really refining those and seeing the extent of the controls people could have. We also tested against standard industry metrics, KPIs, for retention, monetization, conversion, and put a lot of effort into the ad side of the game to understand what the business model there would look like and the conversion.
Cool. So let me summarize. Kate has an experience of heavy casual games where ads monetization is important. And a lot of games are released, right? You do a lot of soft launches. They are short, and you check also mediation and game stability and partners and performance in different geos. Where Christian experience in SEAL.GAMES is you don't make soft launch in classical understanding, right? You make a development pipeline and develop a framework for actually a few games, and check mechanics and check the performance of the game and adjust the framework itself, and then improve metrics basically on live games, not just soft launched. And experience of Ivan is soft launch 20, 30 games, which is impressive actually for the last couple of years. And what I was surprised, and I have a question about that, you mentioned that global launch is not a big event anymore. Why is that? Is it because of featuring doesn't work as much anymore? Or is it just your wave operation where you don't expect a lot of organics because you open countries? Why is that? Could you please clarify?
So in my opinion, it also goes that what kind of games we focus on. So we focus on scalable games. Scalable game means that we think that the lifetime of a game can be 3 to 5 years and can be actually grown from global launch. So even when you get a good visibility and featuring, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make or break the game. It can give you, it's of course useful. You get more data more players that you didn't have to pay for. You can supplement it with a UA, which works better as you get some valuable impressions for free on banners. Just very simple metrics. Of course, the kind of the impact of the featurings, we see that it's going down over years. But nevertheless, if your game is, you're targeting that your game will make tens of millions or hundreds of millions, even the best featuring out there, it will be a small percentage of traffic that you go there. You'll be essentially buying and growing your game for the next couple of years. So even though the visibility is nice, of course it's good to have, it's even if you do not have it, it shouldn't really seal the fate of your game if you have a good game.
Cool. And so Julian's experience with Lemmings, which is ex-PC console game only, big IP, known. I played the game when I was actually a kid, teenager, on PS3. So it's long soft launch, mostly due to challenges with controls, right? Because, yeah, and it's like really common when you port the game from console, like when you use controller, and now it's mobile, big screen or small screen, all the challenges are coming with that. So now a question is, and it's partly covered by Kate, how do you deal with adminization? Because soft launch is usually like how many installs? A couple of thousand installs, right? Depends on how long it takes, but you don't have a big representative base where like all the numbers are screwed up. It's difficult to understand what would be like CPM, at least eCPM on monetization side, on income side, when you have very few installs. Because, I mean, even CPM is like your earnings per 1,000 impressions. And when you have an audience of 500 people, then daily statistics is just screwed up. It's non-conclusive. How do you deal with that? What kind of metrics do you track, if any? Do you even start to track ads monetization before the release? What's your experience in that area?
If you talk about the metrics, it's really connected with the product metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And before we go to worldwide, we not check only CPM or fill rates.
Mm-hmm.
We also checked our retention, our churn and return rates. We also looked at our ARPU, actual ARPU, not on projected. We looked at our, like a sticky factor, because we need to know this user return and how this spent time in our app, what the meditation time spent for the user. We also check our accumulation of impression and clicks on ads unit. And after that, if we have the accumulation of the clicks or all engagement for the user level, we can scale it. We can scale it for all partner in our waterfall. If we talk about the deals, it's our strategy. It's like an open partnership, and we talk with our partners that we put on the first place on our waterfalls from our monetization side, and they help us. They something recommended to us, and we know what particular partner are better performed and what particular its unit. And we know when we go to worldwide, if we put this particular partner in this unit. Yep, we obtained the big growth performance.
As far as I remember, when you launched your previous new games, you didn't implement, definitely didn't reward it. You started with interstitial, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us more.
Yeah, we have sort of a year experience with Unity ads, and Unity ads greatly helped us with integrating a rewarded video solution, because with free-to-play strategy games that we have, they usually monetize through in-app purchases. So at the beginning, there was quite a resistance also from our C-levels. Ad monetization, you know, it cannibalizes maybe our in-app purchase sales. That's where sort of Unity ads jumped in and showed us some of the sweet spots. It was, well, I think almost 4 to 5 pages. And starting from there, we identified the sweet spots depending on the characteristics or on the principles that it should be as unobtrusive as possible. That's also one of the reasons why we fairly early got rid of interstitials, because interstitials simply break the gameplay or sort of pause the gameplay. And instead we decide to go with rewarded videos that are a welcome addition, that add value to the user. So for example, if our players win a battle against a player or in PvE, they get presented with a rewarded video button. Hey, watch this ad, and you get the double reward, something like that. And that turned out to work really well. So unobtrusiveness, added value, and well, no cannibalization as best possible. These are the things we are usually looking for. And if you consider the start or the beginning of our collaboration a soft launch phase, well, then now the phase we're in is maybe like production, where we move to a mediation provider and are now trying to optimize eCPMs and for specific geos, because in Germany you don't want to have exactly the same rewarded videos by volume, for example, whereas in Brazil you simply need a high volume and maybe also a different approach on how you present the rewarded videos.
Yeah, and actually, I very empathize with many things you said. I would say our interesting point of view that we actually work with different companies with kind of a broad genres, and we always see that companies that were used to do like exclusively at monetization wants to get into in-app purchase mode, but still retain the good performance of ads. And on the other side, the companies that were exclusively in-app purchase, they actually want to get something on top of that from ads that again doesn't cannibalize the in-app purchase value. So, and also the best results I've seen, of course, the ratio will be different, but the best results is also a healthy mix of ads, in-apps, and right now subscription as well. And also there's some interesting learning as well. So, for example, there. It's let's say I would say kind of a urban, let's say, myth or let's say fact that interstitials do not work, or rewarded videos are better. And but I'd like to point out that yeah, for some games yes, but for some others it's still very viable monetization source that actually we see that for some reason players are okay to receive interstitials. A great example from our portfolio is actually Hill Climb Racing series, where and that was one of the big, long-lasting experiments that actually we helped to evaluate with the team. That the Hill Climb Racing 2 has important part of revenue from interstitials, and the question was, yeah, if we turn it off, will it be better, or if we, let's say, double it, will it be better? And essentially found out that they're actually increasing the interstitials in the game at the right moment, because it's racing, it's a kind of casual racing game. So at the end, like a commercial break and so on, actually didn't hurt retention at all. Just a pure gain for that. So again, I think it has to be very mindful. All the well-implemented monetization, whether it's ad or in-apps, has to be suitable for the game and for the business model as well. Like for us, the goal for either the soft launch or even after for ads is the true uplift on the overall LTV of game. So again, it cannot cannibalize like other sources, and it should help you to scale the game with a profitable UA. So. And I think the best part of the whole ad market that because it's growing faster than in-apps, then obviously it's a good place to find some extra revenue, and especially with the games that used to be designed as a pure monetization, like we have very successful cases where we were able to add on top of the in-app only background extra 30, 40, even 50% of revenue from ads that exactly are well implemented and integrated within the business model that actually improves the experience, and players are willing to pay for that.
For Lemmings, we were certain from the very beginning we were only going to use rewarded video ads to maintain the user experience. I mean, it's a Sony franchise. Its reception, bringing classic franchises back, can be very poor. You can be harmed quite significantly from user reviews. So we targeted high user reviews to keep the quality up. We were pretty sure we had a good understanding of the RPMs worldwide, so we could model the economy. The most important thing for us was to get an understanding of the engagement level for ads, so the number of people that would be watching ads and the number of ads they would be watching per session. That way we could scale out the numbers that we had on a global basis. Like when you soft launch it's difficult modeling ads, so we basically went from benchmarks that we understood from RPMs and just sought to increase the number of ads people watch per session. Again, they're rewarded, so they don't get in the way of the user experience.
Cool. So let me again summarize, and I'll ask the question afterward. Common experience between Christian and Ivan was basically to make sure on every soft launch that ads will not cannibalize IP. Is it correct? And yeah, I do remember how your C-level and Christian himself was pretty resistant like a couple of years ago to ads. They were like, yeah, we have like cool games, and games are actually really cool. And we don't want to like destroy user experience from this ridiculous ads, but yeah, like it was back and forth, and I convinced, and that like ads is a nice way to monetize like 95% of non-payers. And Kate's experience is like, how big is your IP versus ads? Is it like 70-30, 50-50?
80% goes from the ads.
Wow.
Shall we do a percentage?
Yeah. That would be helpful, actually.
Depending on the setting, 20 to 30% right now.
Ads.
Ads 20 to 30.
Yeah, very dependent on the game. I don't know, Idle Coffee, it's like 90 to 10. I don't know, others are like 50-50, Darts Club, Hill Climb, and others that actually started as a full in-app and just experimenting, it's the other way, like 90-10, but actually it's growing overall.
And for Lemmings, it was like 90-10?
No, I mean, ad revenue now is probably 65 to 70% of IAP revenue.
Cool. So, question, when you make a soft launch, you build your ads monetization, and I know it's like really different case by case, but do you target any particular split? Do you actually thinking about, I wanted to make this game 90-10. I know it's challenging to build strong IP. I know. But then, do you actually target, or like you spray and pray? I mean, you just release the game with IAP features and ads, and then it will work like it will work.
We not have in-app purchases at all. We just only have the subscriptions. But in some titles, when we have the subscriptions, we just give to our users more space. And if our users cannot pay, cannot be a subscription payers, we just can create a rewarded. They open the new content for the rewarded video. And we mostly based on ads. We're not concentrated in purchases.
Cool.
So we do not go for a specific percentage number, but we're very clear about that ads play a more and more dominant role in monetization of games, also for hardcore strategy games, because it's added value and everyone loves free stuff. The interesting thing is, because we're fairly new to ad monetization, the interesting thing is what we are doing right now. So working on the next generation of our framework, which acts as production pipeline for the production of games that have exactly the same game mechanics, but just a different look and feel. And our approach, for example, when it came to identifying the sweet spots, was like, we have a wall in our office that is maybe as large as the screen, and we broke down all our game mechanics, all core loops, everything of the game, and we mapped it so that we are able to visualize where to find the sweet spots, where can we add value to the player, where are the interests for the player, where is it interesting for them, and where is it interesting for us as company, because we of course want to make a living out of that. So that's sort of our approach. So it's becoming more and more in-depth. And if you talk about specific geos, that's where it becomes really interesting. So ads helped us, for example, to tap into markets that we never were able to really monetize. For example, Brazil or Russia. In-app purchases, it's difficult to monetize players through in-app purchases, whereas ad monetization works really well. So there's, of course, let's say a twist to the ad monetization for exactly those regions, but only for those regions.
Cool.
So I do not think that targeting a particular split is very useful nowadays, especially that the market changes all the time, and we see that, for example, subscriptions are growing extremely fast. We're talking 600 to 800% year on year. Ads growing so much faster than in-apps overall. So targeting something now doesn't translate 6 or 1 month from now. So, but I do think that what's important, it's actually to determine what's the primary monetization driver for each game. So, okay, will this be in-app first, or ad first, or subscription first game, or app? But I believe that there will be more games as well. and then try to leverage two other remaining monetization parts to add on top of your baseline without cannibalizing or killing it. So, and we see that that especially as with particular for ads, particular placement, and especially together with some gameplay features, can be extremely effective. So I know, like Darts Club, do help to launch with Boombit and Scale It. At the beginning, it was actually almost pure in-app purchase game. Then after a couple iterations, it was like 20-80. And then after 3-4 months, it's actually like 50-50 split, thanks to a couple of well-placed ad placements that help to skyrocket the whole monetization without touching the in-app purchase layer. So I think there is definitely a huge possibility to leverage at any stage, but on the opposite way also, I don't know, like if you're adding more in-app purchase features, your ratio goes up, continuing to add others. But I think after establishing your primary source of revenue, where your primary expertise live, and try to figure out how to get something on top of that to do others, that's in my opinion the best long-term strategy.
Cool.
So we didn't design the game around ads specifically. We designed it around a user experience. So we wanted to make sure that if a person didn't want to purchase anything, they could still acquire things within the game that they wanted to acquire. So it was designed around user experience rather than a set metric. The only metrics we really did have there was the engagement levels. So if somebody did start watching ads, they would watch X amount per day. I think that it's important to retain the user experience, and the ads are very subtle. You always have options. They only appear in certain points within the game where there's a benefit to the user.
Cool. So what I hear really in common between Kate, Julian, and basically like between all the panelists, is you keep trying to make a fair play between payers and non-payers. Is it correct? Because I've heard Kate mention that we have rewarded for people who can't subscribe. For people who can't pay, we still want them to retain in the game, use the content, consume the content, enjoy the game, though they can't pay for some reason. They don't have card, they don't have money, they don't spend in the game, or they spend a lot in other games, which is similar to your case, Julian, as far as I hear. So the game is for experience. It's big IP, it's famous game, and you wanted to make sure that the game itself is enjoyable, and it doesn't matter actually whether the user is able to pay or not. And I mean, it's same about like ads monetization on top of IP basically means the same. Basically means that some users who didn't pay start to pay you through the ads, and people who pay, they pay. So yeah, that's actually a really good conclusion to hear. I mean, I sent you a list of questions, and now, because the session called Hard Lessons from Soft Launches, can you share any experience, could be not recent game, like in your life, have you got any bad experience? I mean, you started to test ads integration, or you soft launched the game with ads, you implemented interstitial or like banners or whatever, and then the whole thing went wrong. Do you have a, I mean, I'm not pushing you to take like all the dirty clothes out, or mention any names or like people who are guilty for that. Just like, it's worth to discuss bad cases to avoid as well.
Yep, it's in my experience, I have something like that. It's a bad case in my previous company. We launched the new game, and the main monetization side was subscriptions. And we put more than 5 onboarding screen with a subscription to a user during his first session, and cannot give them more space to reward it, to watch an interstitial, to make something else. Just you need to pay just 99 per week, and you can upload your new content.
So like pay or die?
Yep, something like this. It's really I don't know. People, when they go to a game, they want to obtain the fun. Just enjoy the time, spend the time with the happiness, not with the you need to pay right now. And I think it's really bad conclusion. Just you don't give more space and spots for your user. They want to choose their way. You need to give this way these users.
Cool.
So a very noob mistake maybe. So we were playing around with, so in a purchase, how our games monetizes mainly through what I call convenience. So you shortcut build times or something like that, because we have buildings with 80 levels. At some point, it takes like 15 days to finish it. At some point, we played around with the option to shortcut that time through rewarded videos. It worked really well, not for our sales. So that's maybe the thing. So you always have to keep the balance between sales, especially for games where you have IAP and ad monetization. Keep the balance. So it took some time to get rid of this mistake. But at the end of the day, ad monetization is a lovely addition. So,
yeah, I would definitely follow up on the onboarding stories, because this is something that it's kind of being overlooked to some degree, and can have a very big impact on the overall performance of the game. So specifically, even if you have a very good design with the ads placements and whether it's ads or in-apps, you're kind of satisfied with the design itself, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the player can make use of that. So it is very important to onboard them in the right way, and it's actually harder than it sounds, because you cannot put a 30-minute tutorial to explain completely everything. But of course, not explaining something will result in not that many people who interact with that. So actually, the biggest gains that you can get, and I think it's kind of course it's tied to whether it's in-app subscription apps, explaining the value or how to use it. It's important, but especially ads, I think it's very vulnerable to bad onboarding and bad experience, because if you're adding different ways how you can improve the experience, but don't really explain the player and maybe even multiple times how to make use of it, they just won't use it. They won't watch your ads. So I think this is very important and kind of a easy, not easy, but something that you can think about how to improve it. And second part is actually I would highlight the technical difficulties building more complex ad stacks as probably after you progress from like a single ad monetization source, maybe Unity ads or probably Unity ads. If you start with games Unity, you try to add some more. Each of them needs more SDKs. Then you need some maybe mediation to pick the best. But there are many mediations, and then you end up with I don't know, integrating 10, 12 SDKs. Some of them will break because you made a mistake integrating, and some of them will break because the monetization provider did some mistake and your game stops working. And I think this is also many learnings for studios that do not have big history or experience with ads. That it's better, I think, to like one partner at a time, making sure that everything works and progress through, than just integrating 5, 10 and hope that it will be for the best. Yeah, at the end it can hurt the game when your game doesn't launch.
I think really to echo some of your points, that it can be tempting to put more ad networks in there. You can believe if you're sold on the RPM levels they claim. I would say the approach adding additional ones cautiously. Again, for the user experience, you can add more networks. Ultimately, there'll be some disappointment the RPMs aren't where you think they would have been. But also it causes problems that if their curation of the campaigns that they're running is lower, you can start showing ads that crash devices, that don't offer, that really lower the quality of the game, and then from that, take seriously when people will email you to say they've watched an ad, they'd either crashed the game or it went to like a black screen, they didn't get their reward. So I would say that those people still should be treated as if they purchased something within the game, and treat people that watch ads just as seriously as those have IAPs. And if they don't get their reward, then answer their emails, and if you have a mechanism for rewarding them, make sure they get that reward, because they're engaged users. They're users that will stay and watch many more ads if you make them happy.
Cool. Thanks for your opinions. Let me just add some color from the publishers I work with, highlighting a few things you mentioned. So Kate's fail case where people were heavily pushed to buy or goodbye. Yeah, I've seen quite a few things like this in free-to-play, connected to subscription or just IAP. And the learning from the developer was, yeah, we must allow our users to enjoy the game first. We must allow them to spend a couple of days to understand the value of the game, to understand mechanics, to understand whether it's really sticky, and don't push, and don't even try to earn immediately. Same to many games who runs interstitial basically even before tutorial. I've seen games like this as well, and then people are surprised they have reviews in the store with yeah, it's just ad delivery system. It's not even a game. I haven't got any I haven't got an opportunity. I installed the game and I haven't seen the game itself. And as for Christian's case, yeah, one really famous studio, definitely known by every one of you. They've used to run a game for a long time, which is mid-core, hardcore strategy, no ads, and then they implemented ads, and they were shocked how much money they lost. But then when we started, on IP side, and when we started to dig into, and they stopped the test, and they was yeah, ads is bad. It's what was strategically bad decision for us to even think about ads. We started to dig into the case and realized that they just were really generous, and they gave huge rewards. Of course, engagement rate was insane. 100% of people, 90% of people watched ads many times a day, which gave them some income. Metrics on ad side was fantastic, though because the reward was super generous, people stopped to buy. They didn't need anything anymore. So it actually screwed up really well-performing established strategy game. And they restarted the pilot, they restarted the tests, and they did really step-by-step accurate tests for the next 7 or 8 months to make sure and find the balance between the reward value and outcome of ads monetization. Because another example is one of the famous sport games when on the level 5 you can get call it $100 or 100 coins, which is required for basic play as a bet. And then on the level 25, the bet to start another session is 25,000, but the reward is still $100. And for some reason, they have a lot of players who are watching ads for first 5 levels, and then people stop to watch ads because it's not relevant anymore. Because you need to watch 250 ads to actually continue to play. So it doesn't make sense anymore. So yeah, when you soft launch, when you work on ads integration, be careful about value exchange between ads and things you actually give as a reward. And what is important, mentioned by Julian, is due to technical difficulties, when you run complicated ad stacks, mediations, new networks, you try You get impressed by like inbound emails you get from ad networks promising like $1,000 CPMs, etc. Please be prepared to deal with outcome. I mean, broken reward, broken wherever, like server-to-server callback, bad ads, even porn sometimes. I mean, I play a lot of games, and I've seen like 15 minutes. I didn't watch it until the end, of course, but it was like 15 minutes X-hamster porn in ads placement, and it was not like adult game. It was actually just mobile game. So when you build complicated mediations to improve your ads monetization, be careful. Not even be careful, just be prepared to deal with it. It comes not with just higher income, it comes with outcomes.
Maybe also in addition to this, because we recently switched to another mediation provider, the downside of multiple SDKs, because you gave this sort of vague example. So when we implemented this mediation provider's SDK, it turned out that we had a conflict with another service provider's SDK, and that caused 1 week, 2 developers, one back-end, one front-end, identifying and fixing the problem. So that's one week of lost time, just to point that out maybe.
And like 2 developers for your studio is like 20% of your developers, right?
Yes, sort of.
It's not like 2 people out of 200. It's like 2 people out of 10. It's a lot of efforts. So yeah, we have 15 minutes left. First of all, before I'll ask the last question, do you have people who don't sleep yet? Do you have any questions? Because we have like really strong lights to our faces, and I don't see the audience much. I can't even recognize whether people still sleep after lunch or people awake.
There are still some people.
Yeah, yeah. Questions, and we must have microphones somewhere. Yeah. Raise your hands if you have hands, fortunately. No questions. Or any. Don't be shy. Cool. Then, yeah, it's been covered by Kate partially, but I mean, due to like difficulty with numbers, multiple SDKs, what's your strategy for soft launches in terms of like how do you deal with partners? Do you just implement SDKs and sit silently when you will be recognized, or do you go in approach for the deal? Or do you negotiate, I don't know, better CPM or revenue share? Or do you negotiate some bonus, whatever? What is your strategy for launches and soft launches when you work with like different ad partners?
We put for 2 or 4 partners in what particular ads unit to create the internal competition. And they competition based on their CPMs. And we didn't freeze their position in our waterfalls. We changed it. And we changed it every week. And after that, after they saw that our fill rates are increased, they can spend more in our apps, and our CPMs are growth as well. And I think our main strategy is not free the position and create our internal competition with the ads partners for all particular ads unit. Interstitial, banner, rewarder, that's all.
Question. Do all your partners you work with know that you work with them? I mean, do you have relationship, or do you just like run SDK silently? Because I've seen many different cases when like the company implements SDK and expect impressive income from ads, didn't even thinking about that when you don't have relationship, most probably you have kind of default rev share and
yeah, we have the partnerships with our partner, and we don't prefer this launches in silence and sudden. And before this launches, our partner help us. they help us, and they connected with there and have some partnership as well. And I think it's better strategy.
Cool.
Not go to in silence and put SDK in your app and just go to worldwide.
I think if you do not communicate in a partnership, no matter if it's business or private, you're running into trouble. So that's also the reasons why we, of course, have nurtured to transparency. We tell our partners, hey, you're integrated, your SDK is integrated, so they can deliver the best possible result, but also adding value through their expertise. So if we would not take this, we would be stupid. That's sort of our opinion on that. So it's always on collaboration. Collaboration has to also circle around communication.
Cool.
Yeah, I would also add that regarding the relationship with partners and developers, there are also it takes time, and it takes effort and manpower to also do that. So I kind of get that why some especially very small teams are going to silent launch. Even maybe they could get some uplift from communicating with their partners directly, but it's always kind of an opportunity cost. But maybe it would mean that the CEO, who is at the same time the lead programmer, wouldn't implement the game. So if he so I think it's also important way how to structure the game company or publisher or growth arm such as ours. So that you have actually a BD team together with business analytics team that actually are able both to check what is the performance on the different geos, different channels, different partners, how does it actually affect the whole business model, and at the same time are able to establish the partnerships, go to events to even find new and take care of that. So I think that that's actually very important and actually quite rare, to be honest, in companies, that they actually have this kind of BD / business analytics team that takes care of ads or other partners there. But I think it's definitely a good ROI on these teams as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always talk to the networks before launch, during launch, and after launch, especially after launch. Just every week, I think, I spoke to guys at Unity and other companies, just touching base, whether it's on Skype or anything else. We don't look for revenue shares, the percentages, we look for yields. So just straight RPMs, doesn't really bother us whether we're on 80-20 or 50-50, as long as the yield is high. It's up to the network what their percentage is.
So yeah, like ultimately, out of all 4 opinions, my message would be, even if you like one-man shop studio, like you release your game yourself, don't be afraid to talk to your ad partners. I allow tech companies you're going to work with anyway to help you. On our end, we do know that some SDKs crash with some others. It happens. It's just tech world, and it's priced for running tech company to allow crashes. We also need to have a chance to optimize it for you, make recommendations, suggest this and that. So don't be afraid if you're being reached out by ad provider, you put SDK of someone to your game, and then you've been reached out, just reply. Find your time. We're writing you on good reason. So, and before we will finish and wrap up, any few words you would say to the audience about like how would you run soft launch, what to do, what don't do?
I think before soft launch, we need to know what is your target audience. First of all, you need to know for what people you created your game. And after that, this is a pair, this is people who monetize in the future only on ads, and etc. And I think if you know what your particular users has been in your future DAO, you obtain the great success.
Cool.
Absolutely right. That's also the reason why we switched from a, let's say, competition observing design when it comes to game features to design thinking, which is a user-centric approach. At the very beginning, you create personas, and we do that by actually bringing in some of our players, so we know who our players are, what do they want, what are their pains, what are their gains, and this then helps you to create interesting features, and afterwards, of course, to find interesting spots for monetization, added value. So, always question your game. Try to identify and find the good sweet spots, and iterate. Always iterate.
For me, or from our experience, I think it's good to set some kind of a timeline for the soft launch and global launches, as I believe there are diminishing returns running very long soft launches. The same way are like extremely short. Do not have to help you that much. So setting up some plan and timeline, as I believe from 3 to 6 months, is an ideal kind of a target, and then make sure that you release the game as best shape as possible. But again, it doesn't really make or break the game. Most of the case, it's just gets you a good head start to go on. And because this also makes you prioritize, and for me, the soft launch and the whole process leading up to global launch is prioritizing things that are business-wise, user experience-wise, complete priority, technical-wise, complete priority, fixing them, going to the market. Because then, to be honest, no matter how the hypotheses work in pre-soft launch and soft launch stage, the true kind of potential of the game will be unlocked after you make it available and then see the traction. Like recently, we for example with Rumble Stars that we did with Frogmind, which is one of the SuperScale studios in Helsinki. We knew from the metrics that the game will be good. But actually, after the global launch, we found out that the game went absolutely crazy in Japan. It was like in just a couple of weeks, it went to top 10 downloaded in Japan and hit top 100 grossing. And you can see if you list a penny that there are only Japanese characters and Rumble Stars, Frogman and rest of them. And this is also something that is hard to expect. But again, after that, you can actually improve your strategy, that instead of focusing some soft launch countries, you can focus on the countries where you will be actually very successful due to something that you cannot truly predict.
Cool.
I mean, I'd say don't underestimate the revenue opportunity from ads. I mean, I've lost count with the number of developers I've worked with who've said they'd never play a game with ads in. Then when they see the ad revenue coming in, when they see the retention, it's still maintained. They change their minds. It's a different perspective you've got as a player of a game to a developer of a game. I mean, to sort of frame some of the opportunities, like at Lemmings, our ambition is to get to 500,000 a month on ad revenue, and we'll get there.
Cool. So thanks for your time. Great thank you to panelists.